welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your footy correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another Donnie's Disposals AFLW player chat. And ladies and gentlemen, you know I'm a Swans fan, have a connection. So I thought, let's find another Swans player to talk to. And today we have the awesome defender from the Sydney Swans, Miss Brenna Tarrant. Brenna, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is super exciting.
All right. Well, there's one thing I have to say right now. I would definitely switch you places right now because it looks fantastic down where you are right now. I'm sitting at probably something like -3 Celsius right now here in the lovely Des Moines, Iowa. At -4 as I check my phone nice and quick. So I would switch places with you very, very quickly for sure. So now that we've done our weather part of the podcast, I always like starting my podcast office. We all know you're a footy player. We all know this is a footy podcast, but I kind of
Yes.
like knowing a little bit about the person behind footy. So I thought, tell us a little bit about yourself outside of the game of footy.
Yeah. Look, I'm whatever. Always been a diehard sports person. Did just about any sport under the sun when I went through school. I'm fortunate. I've actually just come back to my, homegrown family home. I grew up in sort of you might know, maybe not, the area of the Blue Mountains in New South Wales, lovely part of Australia. So I've ducked back there. That's where I grew up. Not at all a place of AFL. No one. I went to school with maybe 5 people that played AFL out of 1,000. And yeah, other than that, we not a very big AFL area. Grew up doing dancing, netball, swimming, triathlons. Yeah, that was sort of all the stuff I was really deep in. And then probably at about the age of 14, I watched an AFL game, a men's game, and there was she ended up being one of my friends, but a girl playing in the team, and that sort of sparked my interest.
Awesome, awesome. So you might have already answered it. What would you say is your earliest footballing memory?
I mean, like that's what got me into the game. But I'd say my first footballing memory was probably walking around the local shops and seeing a bright pink pair of footy boots that I was obsessed with, and trying to convince mum to let me buy them and let me play. And fortunately, I ended up with that pair of pink football boots. So that's probably my earliest.
Oh, that's fantastic. Great. Love it. Rocking the pink boots for sure. So I,
Yeah.
I gotta ask this. I mean, you're still in the middle of your career right now. What's your favorite part about playing the sport of footy?
I think that it's always different. One game from another, whether it's win or loss, like, you get a different story, you get a different outcome, things happen that you remember out of every single game. Um, you know, I mean, I've been playing now for about 7 years, maybe 8 years, and I'd remember almost all my games of footy, from some sort of circumstance that happened in a certain quarter. But yeah, I guess obviously there's lots of different things. You can be really creative. It's almost like a work of art when it's done properly.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is for sure. And being an American who got into the sport a little bit later, as I see the professional sports, it is a work of art. It is beautiful when it is played at its purest for sure. So I think I know the answer. In fact, I know the answer, but I gotta ask, what is your club that you used to support as a kid?
Actually, the Sydney Swans. I've been obsessed. Loved Adam Goodes back in the days. He was my idol. The way he stood up for himself and his race and all that sort of stuff, and just this player he was so strong and moved so swiftly. But yeah, I've been a Swans fan my whole life. Obviously, moved to Melbourne to the Demons, and I had to support them while I was there. But I've always had a soft spot for the D's. So
There's no problem with that at all, especially playing on the team. In fact, you actually, with a great transition for me, is that let's go back to draft night. I mean, you were as a New South Wales girl, you get drafted to the Melbourne Demons. So I got to ask, what was that first emotion when you heard your name being called to Melbourne? And then second, what was your family's reaction, and who had the best reaction to finding out you were drafted?
You know what? There's actually a video when my name gets called out, and it went viral in Australia. It was quite hilarious when I got drafted, because I was in the middle of my end of school like exams that everyone sit. So you sit one for every single like class you take when you're teaching school. And I was sort of in the middle of studying for my last exam, no, my second last exam with all my school friends. And I was in the library and went through the draft numbers, and then my name got called out and I screamed in the library. And like I went to school in the Blue Mountains as well, and where my school's based is like surrounded by bush. So the librarian naturally thought that there might have been some sort of snake or something
That's
in the
awesome.
library. Yeah, it's around. The video's around somewhere.
I will have to
I think
have you send me that video. I'm trying to find, I think I saw it on YouTube and I wanted to find it and I can't find it. So if you find it, send it to
yeah,
me in our Instagram message, because I think I think I saw it on YouTube, but I didn't get a chance to click on it. So that is awesome. So what was your parents' reactions when they found out?
yeah. Well, I mean, my whole family was sort of tuning into the draft the whole day, because it went for quite a long time, because the draft that year was longer because there were 4 new teams coming in when I was drafted. So Sydney wasn't in the league at the time. So, and there were only a few teams at that stage. There were 14 teams coming in. So I'd probably been sitting on that draft for maybe 4 hours.
Oh
And
boy.
obviously, yeah, sitting there waiting, and then obviously got called out. And after I had my had my moment with the in the library, I think yeah, I probably had mum and dad were quite emotional about it. My brother didn't seem to care too much. Like, oh yeah, nice, well done,
Good on you. Good on
awesome.
you. Nice job.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Oh, don't you
So
love the siblings? Don't you love the siblings? Alrighty.
uh,
All right. I'm gonna go to this next one. This is one of my favorite ones because I've had fun asking this question. I'm gonna give you a chance to humble brag here. What's your biggest accomplishment as a footballer so far?
um, yeah, that's I've had some like nice accomplishments, and it's hard to sort of put a finger down on which one it is exactly. But I think, other than that getting drafted and becoming a footballer, obviously the opportunity to have played on Adelaide Oval in a prelim final, I'd say was pretty amazing. Um, with some really big names in the league like Daisy Pearce and Anne Hatchard and the big names, and I was fortunate enough to play in that game as well. So I think, again, to pump the tires up, I think that's probably one, other than the making the AFLW and stuff like that.
All right. So here's the reason that I loved asking this question is the previous people that I've talked to, they all did team. So you're the first one to actually do your own personal one. So I wanted to see how many it would take before I finally got for somebody finally said something that they did. So I appreciate that. So that's a lot of fun. So we'll go to this. I mean, I know you're from New South Wales and you were a Swan supporter, but was that the biggest reason you decided to come back to the Sydney Swans, or was there something else?
You know what? To be honest, it actually wasn't. I think, I'd always thought, and my dream was always to play for the Sydney Swans and, play in the colours that I supported, as it's everyone's dream to play for the team that they support. But, when you go to a new team, when you're in a very successful team at the Demons, it's sort of like what's best for my footy career, or like where am I gonna best learn? Am I gonna? I mean, I'm always gonna learn new things at any club, but it's like what's best in the moment. And I really was sort of like, oh, I could stay at Melbourne and potentially make a grand final again this year, and make finals in the next few years, or do I come to Sydney and help set up or help become part of like the very first, and I guess help the team that I support when they do a lot for you.
Mhm.
So I guess, yeah, there was a lot of contributing factors, but again, like I'd moved straight out of home to Melbourne once I finished school. It was sort of 2 days after I'd finished school that I was moved out of home, and it was, I don't know, I think I was just keen to be around family again as well. So many different factors. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, and 100%. And the other thing too is with you unfortunately still not being full-time professional. And again, I'm many people that have listened to my podcast know when I do my AFLW, I harp and complain, and I mean I sit here and suck as much as I can that you ladies deserve to be full-time athletes. So you have a huge ally here, but it's not that simple. It's not simple as I just want to
All
go to
right.
this because I want to play there. There's job, there's life, there's family, and all that stuff. So I think that's the other reason why I liked asking that question, just because there is more to just football to many of these decisions, especially with the expansions, because it's just not as
Yeah.
simple and so dry as that. So I gotta ask this. I want to go into the change rooms a little bit. Do you have a best mate at the club?
Um, I think I'm a bit of like a floater. I sort of float around all the. I didn't want to, deliberately float to one person or, become attached to one person. Then it creates a bit of a, an environment where everyone has their person or their group, and then everyone becomes isolated. It's not good for the footy field, but I don't know. I think there's some, in terms of characters that are good to hang around, that I'd probably float to more often than not. The names like Bella Smith. Obviously, she's a funny character to be around. Um, Obviously, like Brooke Laughlin's got a wealth of knowledge. It's fun. It's good learning off her, and um, I'd probably say those two really. But there's definitely a lot of other people that I'd go and spend some time with.
Well, and I could tell even in some of the videos and stuff like that, you're surprisingly for having such a short time together, you were a very tight knit group. It was very much a family. I could tell that. I remember hearing one of the interviews with Scott Gallant with Coach Gallant, and he was like, I think he was surprised how quickly all of you guys started interacting with each other, like some of the New South Wales girls with some of the VFLWs, and then yourself, Brooke Lachlan, and Maddie Collier being the experienced girls, how quickly everybody kind of gelled and how it kind of became like much more, it was easy for everybody to get along. So I think he was very happy
Yeah,
that for putting a group together and throwing it kind of together in 10 weeks and not having a ton of time, you guys gelled really quickly. So and I could tell on the field, you guys were really, really such a tight knit group that I think that was so it's just a fun question sometimes for me to
yeah.
ask. So
I think we knew it had to happen. We couldn't, we had to get along
mhm.
well quickly because of obviously the season moved forward. There's been 2 seasons in 1 year, and it moved forward, and we had such limited time. But we had like so much support behind us, and different coaching methods and people that came in and sort of helped, I guess, move that along as well. So it wasn't just us linking arms together and boom, we're best mates. There was a lot of support behind it. Obviously, a lot of girls had done a lot to get into the team and, or move and all that sort of stuff as well. So we all kind of were like, oh, it's another piece of the puzzle.
Mhm. No, 100% understand, and I love it. So we'll stay on that. What was the room like? I mean, as you kind of said, you're a floater. It was the room where everybody kind of intermixed with each other. Was it one of those that you had your groups of the jokers, the fun people, the kind of how was the locker room, would you say?
I think like everyone talks to everyone, which is nice. And even when we go away or we're in the teams or when we're playing, like everyone gets along really, really well. Although I know a lot of the Victorian girls live with each other up in
Mhm.
Sydney, so naturally they get along with each other a bit better because they live with each other. But um, no, I think it's been like, because I think they said 80% of our team moved
Mhm.
to Sydney, so not many of them ended up being from New South Wales. But um, yeah, I think there definitely are people that hang closer to certain people. But yes, you often see groups merging together, and or people coming together and talking very often. So
That's great. And again, it's you guys are setting up the building blocks for a young team, which is great to see. And as I told you in the instant message, I watched every single game. I had to wake up early for a few of them. I kid you not. I was up for a few of those games at 1 a.m. to watch your games. I do the same thing with the men. And I said I didn't care what the result was. I just wanted to watch. I just wanted to support you ladies. In fact, I will send you an instant message that I think is something really, really cool. I'll tell you about it a little bit later, not on the podcast. I'll tell you something really, really cool that the Swans actually did with a tweet of mine. So many of my podcasters have heard it. So
yeah, right.
yeah. So
No,
all right. Alrighty. So I want to go to this. This was one of the coolest videos I got to see. Let's go back to the first night that you ladies got to train on the SCG. Describe to me the emotions going through you, especially as a Swans fan. You got to walk through the race. You got greeted by Tom Harley, the CEO. You got greeted by Dane Rampy, one of the captains of the team. And then you got to walk on the field through the guard of honor, through the men's players. How cool was that? And did you get a chance to talk to any of the men's players before you got to train?
I mean, unfortunately, we didn't get to speak to any of the men's players before we trained because it was basically just straight on and start training. But yeah, it's honestly like such a crazy experience. Like, I've been from New South Wales. Like, I went to so many Swans games as, when I was into footy and, sitting in the stands and being on the ground. It was, standing there and I was looking to every seat that I sat in the ground and being like, I watched a game from there and now I'm on this ground. And like, my dad's a massive like cricket head.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, he's wanted to play on the SCG so badly, and obviously he never got the opportunity, and I did. But yeah, I guess standing on the SCG, one of the only real natural, professional sporting grounds in Australia now, it was just, the dreams just kept coming true this year. But having even like Tom Harley and Dane Rampion that say that the club is one, the club is full, their hearts are full, like we're a big family, just made it just made everything feel so, nothing was off to the side. It was all 100% in. Yeah, it made our cups so full.
No, it was fantastic. And I told Alicia Newman when I talked with her, I said, seeing Montana Ham give a cheeky little look over at Buddy as she walked by Buddy was one of the funniest parts. I watched that video several times and just she gives that cheeky little, holy crap, that's Buddy look. So I
Yeah.
absolutely love that. It was absolutely fantastic. And I still laugh because I have a screensaver of the picture that you took with the men's team. And the part I laughed the most about is that Wicks, Errol Goulden, and I think Logan McDonald are all looking away from the camera as the picture is taken. And I crack up so badly every time I see it because it's like they're all looking to the right. If you look at it, they're all looking just to the angle. They're not looking at the camera. It's absolutely cracks me up every time I
Funny.
see it.
It is.
So
I know the photo.
alrighty. So that was a great moment. But here's the other one that I absolutely loved. First home game at North Sydney Oval, sold out, red and white everywhere, absolutely nuts. Gets to play in that game. How cool was that running out knowing you were wearing the Swans jumper and you were playing for points as the first ever Swans team?
Bloody, oh my gosh, it was again like, I don't. Have you ever been to an AFL game before?
I have not. That is
Or
on my bucket list to get to Australia. I have not, but it is on my bucket list. And if I go, I'm coming when I can see both a men's and a women's game, if possible.
yeah, like the atmosphere at a men's game is insane because there's so many people and they're always chanting and even the smallest good things that happen. And being to many AFLW games as either a supporter or as a player, there was no game quite like North Sydney Oval, and there were 8,000 people there from what I remember, and the roar at that ground was just like being at a men's game. which again you couldn't really zone into it too much when you're
Hmm.
getting up down there in the back line, but just hearing even some of the people just behind you like supporting you and saying your name, and you're like, far out, like this is no better feeling. And even the patience that all the fans had, like, no, we didn't win, but there's just this overwhelming amount of support for us, and it really, like, that one night just really encapsulates our whole season from our
Yeah,
supporters.
and I absolutely loved it watching. And again, I'm 13,000 kilometers away. Again, I'm watching this, but I loved seeing all the fans get the autographs and chat with the girls, get selfies. Like, yeah, that was fantastic to see. Like, that was cool for me because if I would have been there, I'd have been trying the same thing, getting autographs, getting selfies, talking, because I just wanted you ladies to see that you're supported. Is it perfect? Did we have the same enthusiasm the entire year? No, but I was just excited for you guys to experience that, and I know it's still coming. And I think the Swans supporters are really want to be there for you, and we can't wait to see you ladies again next year. So we'll go kind of to more of the daily stuff. I like finding out, again, as we kind of said, you are not full-time professional. So what's kind of your typical day during the season, say a training day? What's kind of your typical day?
Yeah, I guess it sort of varies on the day, because I sort of work part time as well outside of um, being a football player. But I think the one good thing that happened with COVID is that remote working still exists.
Hmm.
So I'm fairly lucky that I get to work from home 4 days a week. So yeah, a lot of the time it's working in the morning, early afternoon, and then jumping in the car over to training, and then doing all the extra gym work, the touch sessions, trying to get those extra few hands on the footy than what your opposition is. Um, and then yeah, getting into training and sort of a late night home some nights. Other nights, I might have had the day off, or it was a morning training session, and you kind of get the rest of the afternoon to go to the beach. We've got some nice beaches nearby our training grounds, so yeah, it sort of depends on whether you're working or not. But yeah, sort of had a fairly good environment this year, between work and football, and the balance.
Good, good. That's great to hear. And again, at least that's the one thing that COVID working at home is that it gives you a little bit more flexibility, definitely, especially with you guys having to play two
So
seasons in 1 year is got to be a little bit hectic. So
yeah.
yeah, so I'm gonna go to this is again, you're relatively young in your career. Um, uh, was there a player that you kind of model your game after?
Yeah, look, she's a former teammate of mine, and I think you know my game styles probably is likely to change in the next few seasons, but especially this year and years before, I've always looked up to Libby Birch.
Hmm.
Again, like she was a former teammate of mine at Melbourne, and I roomed with her once or twice. When we were traveling interstate for away games and stuff like that, and the way she sort of would wrap her arms around me as someone, the only real New South Welshman living in Victoria in that team. She really sort of made sure I was enjoying the club and felt like there was good support around me. And then obviously the way she plays is really exceptional. She's such a calm defender, and yeah, obviously something that any defender wants in their game is to just be able to be cool, calm, and collected when the ball's heading your way. So
And
definitely
she's
Libby.
she is a very good one to model your game after. And I see a little bit of that in you for sure. In the games that I watched, you may not feel like it, but you seemed really cool, calm, and collected at times back there when you had some fun games. So compliment from somebody that watched a lot all your games this year. You've got a lot of that there, and I really loved how calm you were in kind of some crazy situations for sure. Just coming from me. So, as a defender, this is going to be a fun one. Who's your toughest opponent that you've ever played on?
Yeah, I was trying to think of who I felt was the toughest when you sent out that question, and I was sort of like, it's really tough because a lot of the time I was playing like my direct opposition was taller than me, but I reckon I struggled more against the shorter players like Chloe Shear
Mm-hmm.
because they move so well. They're a little bit more agile, but just her hand-eye ability and just how well she reads the footy was something that sort of caught me off guard a little bit more. When you're playing on, a lot like taller players like Emma King at North Melbourne, for example, like I've just got to try and get the ball away from her arms. Whereas Chloe, like with Chloe, she's moving so much more. She's got to read the footy and get in a really good position with her body that it was actually harder to judge.
Yeah, I can
So I'd probably
definitely.
say like someone like Chloe.
Yeah, she definitely gave you guys a ton of headaches in that game for sure. Unfortunately, so
Yeah.
well, we won't focus on this one very long. I don't want to focus on this one. Okay, last season again, was it everything we wanted? No, but kind of what were your thoughts? And then, do you have any goals coming off of this year for next year?
Yeah, I mean, like, at the start of the season, we were focusing a lot on winning games and stuff like that. And then we kind of realized that we're focusing on it too much and we forgot that that's the end result, that there's a lot of stuff you've got to do before you get that end result. So I guess, there's a lot of things we need to touch up on that's inevitable, to, be competitive with a lot of other teams. I think a lot of it's just finding consistency in our work rate, just making sure that, we will have patches where we have the momentum and we've got to really grasp that and, work with it and really punish other teams. But, and of course, the opposition's always going to get momentum, whether they're, at the top of the ladder or coming last. And we've got to be able to sort of limit their opportunities and just sort of be able to embrace what oppositions give. I
Yeah.
think just being really adaptable and, yeah, just, working really hard consistently.
Yeah, I 100%. Again, I still say this was so much more of a success than some people. I don't look at wins and losses with everything that you had to deal with this year. Shortened season, putting a team together in New South Wales, traveling, everything like that. There's a ton of positives to come off of. So I smile every time I watch the games because I didn't look at the results. I just wanted to see was there progression, and for me, I saw many a progression. So we'll jump to the next. What do you think was the biggest challenge this year for you personally?
Uh, for me personally, I mean, I guess I was sort of, a bit unfortunate, had a few like niggles in terms of like just a bit sore coming off last season. I guess, only 11 of us played an AFLW season earlier this year. A lot of
Hmm.
girls came out of fell, and I guess, with the competitive team that Melbourne was, naturally I finished that season very, very sore, even if I didn't play in that grand final.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, obviously moving to Sydney, I was naturally just fairly sore in different areas, and that would sort of, my calf would get sore at one training session, and the next it's my back, and then the next it's my shoulder, and then something like that. And I think that, and then I had a few mental challenges. I'd rescued a dog when I was in Melbourne, and I had to put her down at the start of the season, and yeah, just a lot of battles. But I think it created a lot of resilience. So I'm all the more better for it now. But it was definitely a challenge in pre-season. I had a bit of a disrupted pre-season.
Yeah, and I can understand that again. It's always tough to transition from that and the move and everything like that. So, um, I'll ask you as a person, do you feel that the progression, do you think this year's Swans team was a success?
I'd definitely say it was like, even again, like to look on the positive side of things, like we did progress. Um, and while we don't have any points on the board yet, still, we're still waiting for that final piece. Is a win, but we did develop a really good team that connects really, really well. And, we've got really, really good resources in, Tom Harley, he's always down helping us train. And Nick Davis as well, former Swan, he's always helping us out with training. And our coaching group has so much care for us. And just, we've got sort of a really big family. And I'd say it was definitely successful that we do have the right people around us. And, obviously we're moving into some new facilities that are amazing, at the end of this month. So, yeah, it's only going to go even further upwards from here.
I sure hope so. So, one more before I get to some of the supporter questions. I have several supporters who wanted to throw out some questions. I wanted to ask this is we've all I think many of the Swans, we saw the videos again, like we said at North Sydney Oval, all the selfies and the autographs. Did you have a fan interaction that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, again, I had another deep, think about this because I had some really good support even at Melbourne. As a Sydney sider in Melbourne, I had some really good support from Melbourne fans down there. But I've actually got to say that the Sydney fans are so hard to, put my, put my finger down on who was absolutely amazing. We had some really good, podcast groups as well, like the Her Way podcast. Abby, she's a young, I don't even know how old she is. She's very young.
Mm-hmm.
She's been really great supporting us. But actually, I moved away from the Melbourne Demons to come back to Sydney to play for my dream club. And the support from some of those Demon fans to me while I was playing in Sydney was quite memorable. Like I had, some of the Demon Army supporters messaging me just saying like, we love the way you're playing. We love where you're going. It's just a shame that it's in different colours, but there's still so much support from those Melbourne fans that I just have to highlight.
Not a bad thing. In fact, I'll tell you one. I've got a very good friend of mine, Ali Collette, who's a very good friend of mine, and she reached out to me when she found out you were moving to Sydney, and she goes, "Do me a favor, Donnie." She says, "Support her and take care of her because she's a good one." And I go, "We will do. We will definitely take care of her." So you were definitely there were many a D there were a few D's fans that I'm very good friends with that they were sad to see you go, but they were happy that you found a place that you were going to be successful. So and I reached out to Allie towards the end of the season. I went, Allie, I said, legitimately, I love Brianna's game. She's so much fun to watch. She's so cool, calm, and collected back there. I love her game. I'm sorry she's not in D's colors, but I'm so happy she's in Swan's colors. And she gave me like heart emojis back, so she was very happy. So when Allie hears this, she'll be happy she gets the shout out. So I know exactly what you're talking about. The D's fans that I know of, they miss you, but they're happy that you came up and you had a chance to play and be successful. So she's in tears. She's in tears, but we
Yeah, I
absolutely
mean,
love that.
I am so glad. Yeah, no,
There's not a
I mean,
problem with that.
yeah, I mean, look, I before I even started in the AFLW, you've got the team that you support, which obviously for me was the Swans, but there's always a team that you have such a soft spot for that you know, wouldn't mind playing for, and to me that was Melbourne. That still is Melbourne. I love that club. I love what they're doing, and when I look back to my career, I'm going to be so excited and to tell people that I played for two teams that I just adore is something you really want to be able to talk about.
Definitely, and be very proud because you represent both very well. So let's jump to it. I've got some supporter questions, and some of these I cannot wait to hear the answer to. I don't know if you know him, Zane Red and White, who he does characters. In fact, one of his first females was Cynthia Hamilton, and she loved his
Yep.
early work. Zane Red and White sends this one. He goes, with you still being a young player, he wants to know how did you manage being as a young player with a ton of experience, how did you manage balance between being a leader and still progressing as in your playing career?
I think, yeah, and like obviously, like I think the coaches obviously, wanted me to be able to show or use what I learned at Melbourne being such a good program to come out of. But yeah, like I came to the club being 20 years old and only just turned 21. And I think, you know, as a 21-year-old, I didn't want to get, put leadership, at the forefront. It was something that, I hope to one day be a leader in the club, whether that's in the leadership team or not, but just being able to sort of help guide some of those newer girls like Ella Heads and who else? Alana Woodward, Maddie Collier, those girls in the background, just be able to sort of help them out by just being calm. Like it's not easy playing in the back line. And I guess to be able to add that level of calmness, I think help those girls out just be able to execute their roles. But from a leadership side, I think I just had to put it aside and just figure out what I'm good at and just do what I'm good at and not worry about my weaknesses and just play all to my strengths and sort of take those girls along with me just in the way that I play. I guess it was sort of, leadership through my actions, not through my words.
Yeah, leader by example, and you did a wonderful job for sure on that one. So we'll go to Mark here. What was your inspiration to play footy, and was it a hard decision to join the Swans?
Definitely wasn't a hard decision to join the Swans, other than obviously playing in the red and white was always a dream. But again, like it was deciding whether or not I wanted to leave the successful team of Melbourne to join a brand new team that, when you join a new team, they're either going to be super successful or not at all. Sometimes you get the in-between, but, it was, I don't regret the decision at all. Like it is hard. I'm still supporting Melbourne going through the final series right now and wanting to be there so badly, but I don't regret being part of the inaugural Swans team at all. What was the start of the question?
What was your inspiration to play footy?
I think, aside from, seeing women run around in men's teams when I was younger, under 14 years of age, watching those girls, I think it was, I'd been playing netball and I was dancing and I was either playing women, like female dominated sports or individual sports. And I guess I sort of wanted to tackle something that was different. Something that not a lot of people in my area especially, really did. And I guess, that was, aside from all the amazing women that, played before me and in those men's teams, I think it was just, really being able to try something different that I really didn't know anything about.
All right. I love this one. Lachlan is one of my friends on Twitter, and I absolutely love him. He goes, "How good is Cynthia Hamilton?"
She's a legend. I love Chi. Yeah, we call her Chi around the club. She's such a funny character. Like she talks to everyone. She's such a, she just goes 100% at everything. Watching her play, before we even drafted her, Scott Gowan showed me a video of her taking this crazy mark in like our national series, and I was like, she is going to lead by example. She is going to be so good for our team, and she's going to be inspiring from the get-go. And obviously, she did that. So, she's amazing, Cynthia.
Yeah, it was funny. I saw a video just before the draft of it was kind of her draft AFLW video, and like they just kept showing she would go so hard at the footy and tackle so hard. I'm like, she's going to be a fan favorite before she even puts a jersey on. If people see these videos, and I could tell she was, and then the fact that she has her helmet and she hands her helmet out, and then not even 2 days later, the young girl that she gave the helmet to puts out a TikTok, like either a TikTok or a Twitter video saying, "I want to be Cynthia Hamilton when I grow up." I was like, boom, fan favorite without even having to do very much. So I was not surprised somebody asked that question, but I 100% agree. She absolutely was fantastic to watch this year. I love this from Connie. You're a Swans fan, so you know all about this. What do you think of the Bloods culture? And how do you think do you think it influenced the team this year?
Oh, it influenced us so much. Like, the Bloods culture, I think you there's so much more to it than what the supporters even know about it. Like the supporters are completely on the right track with it, but there's so much more to it within the club. It's the Bloods culture, and learning about it and being inducted into it by the men's team was sort of just the start of it. Obviously, being reeled into it and playing our game just to the Bloods culture was, I think, something that helped us progress and helped us become successful in a season where we didn't win any games. But you could, as a Swans, obviously used to watch the Swans, and that, like, I definitely say the way we played was to the Bloods culture.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. So I have this great one. There's a great podcast, a Swans podcast called Bevy of Bloods, and they sent me a couple of them. So I'm going to ask you them. Have you seen the new Hall of Industries? Have you been inside of it? And then he wants to know if you can get any of the fans' tours yet.
I actually, they have done a few tours. I didn't do any of them. I'm sort of waiting for the final reveal, but I've seen some photos and I've heard about it from my teammates who have done the tours, and they said it's absolutely amazing. As for tours, I don't. I would assume they will be doing tours because why not? The place is amazing. It is also considered a community centre, so I would say they will be doing tours. I don't even think I'll need to get you into them.
Well, I will definitely let them know to keep an eye out on that one. So I love this one, and especially because you talked about it a lot in a couple of previous questions. How do the D's and the Swans differ in club style?
Yeah, I think not all. I think obviously they have their different cultures, that obviously like largely set them aside. I think with it's really hard to say. I think obviously the Swans play a lot of their history and they share their history and all that sort of stuff. Obviously Melbourne have popped up and won a premiership recently, and like they both clubs play off so much heart. I'm sure every club plays off so much heart, but I think it's really hard. They're really quite similar, even though like obviously our women's team is so new.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's also hard to tell because now that obviously I was with Melbourne largely through the COVID period, so we were severely isolated from the men's team.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we shared the same facilities, we weren't allowed in there at the same time as each group. So, it sort of felt a little bit isolating, but that wasn't any of the club's fault. They wanted us to be around each other, but it just couldn't happen because of COVID. Obviously, now that we're out of COVID, like, I'll be walking around the club and, Isaac Heaney walks past, Buddy walks past, all those men's players walk past. And it's sort of, obviously, we can do it a bit more now because obviously Australia's mostly open.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I can't really put a finger on it. Other than obviously Melbourne has both teams very, very successful in finals. And obviously we're getting there. Obviously the Swans have been largely successful for a long period of time. But, yeah, I couldn't put a finger on it.
Yeah, that one's especially considering with your time there, maybe a little bit of a different situation. It'd be interesting to find out because I've heard from some players that sometimes what the Swans did was very much encompassing of everybody. Sometimes the women's clubs are kind of don't argued away a little bit from what I've heard. Again, I don't know specifically. I'm going off interviews and stuff that I've heard. So, last question from the Bevies. Which player, man or woman, is your favorite of all time?
I mean, yeah, obviously I've always looked up to Adam Goodes, but he sort of retired fairly early on in my footy career. I guess. Oh, there's way too. I'd say there's probably a good maybe like 3 or 4. Like obviously I love Adam Goodes. I love watching how much of like a tough person Isaac Heaney is, but then being able to play along Libby Birch and Daisy Pearce is just so inspiring. And the person that Daisy is and how she leads that team is just, it's, I don't know, you can't put words to it. It's just so fascinating.
I got there's only one, and it encompasses Adam and Daisy Pierce, and that's legend. 100% agree. Absolute legend. So we've done with that. I gotta ask some fun ones. And this one for me, I gotta ask this because I know the Hamilton sisters are both Swan supporters. I think Maddie Collier is, and you.
Yeah.
Who's the biggest Swans Nuffy on the Swans women's team? Who's the biggest Swans fan?
You might be surprised by this, but Alana Woodward,
Okay.
she so she's from Victoria, or she's come up from Victoria. She's played for both Richmond and St Kilda. But at the start of the season, I found out that when she was a kid, she was a massive Swans fan. And obviously, before she made it in the AFLW, she was a big Swans fan, and her family was in the, was Swans fans and everything like that. So I think, yeah, Lana Woodward, a little, come from behind.
Come out of nowhere. I love it. Absolutely. Because I know the Hamilton sisters. I know that I think they did a story on it. And I knew you were from New South Wales. And then I know Maddie Collier is also from New South
Yeah.
Wales. So I had seen some, but I wasn't sure. And I think I've heard, what was it? I think Alicia Newman told me her father is a huge Swans fan. So she's a doggy supporter, but her father was a Swans fan. So it's very interesting to hear
Yeah.
how many Swans fans are actually on the team. So that's absolutely fantastic. So I'm gonna let you have some fun here, okay? I'm gonna install you as the AFLW Sydney Swans list manager for the day. You can bring in any player from the league. There are no restrictions. One player. Who's gonna join the Bloods and why?
Uh, oh, oh no. Uh,
No
who would
pressure.
I
No
bring?
pressure.
You know what? I merely just said straight to the gun, Daisy Pearce. But I know we've already got really good leaders. So who else would I bring in? Actually, she's a ton of fun. Also, former teammate, Gabby Colvin.
Hmm.
So she played at all this season with the ACL, but she's a loose cannon. She's so funny.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I'll have to see that. That'd be interesting to see her there. So, alrighty. So I've done some word associations before, but I'm going to change this a little bit. So you've been through a full season. So I want to ask first teammate that comes to mind when I say this. Who's the team mom?
Team mum, Alana Woodward.
All right. All right. Who's
Yeah.
the funniest? Who's the biggest joker of the group?
Oh, there's so many. Sarah Skinner, I reckon.
Alrighty.
Sarah's
All right, the toughest.
definitely Cynthia Hamilton.
Yeah, especially she had that black eye and did not want to stop. That was
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Social butterfly.
Oh, maybe I've got two on my mind. Um, I'm gonna say Bridie Kennedy.
Okay. All right. Most emotional.
I nearly said me. Um, who would be the most emotional? Actually, I'm gonna say me.
All right. All right. Who's the quirkiest?
Quirkiest. Probably also Sarah Skinner.
All right. Have you had a chance to have anybody cook? Who's the best cook of the group?
Uh, Tian Kavanagh. She makes some really good sweets and brings them into the club.
All right. And last but not least, most likely to come fashionably late.
Huh. Fashionably late. Fashionably late. No fault of her own because she works really long hours, but Sarah Ford.
Okay. All righty. That's a good little group there. That's fantastic. All right. So we're gonna take you out of player mode just a little bit. As I kind of told you, I have not been to Australia. It's on my bucket list. I plan on coming. I know Alicia Newman even said she wants me to come out and watch a game for sure. So I'm gonna put your
Yeah.
fan hat on for just a bit. When you go to the footy, what's your favorite food to have at the footy?
I mean, I never took my fan hat off, but you, it's gotta be a meat pie. You're not a
Uh,
footy fan if you have a meat pie at the footy.
I did a fan interview series with some Australians, and actually I've caught a few that are vegan, so they can't have a pie. So they have hot chips or a jam donut. I know are the two most common that I heard after that. All right,
Yeah,
when you go to a game, where's your favorite place to sit to watch the game?
I'd say like if we're in both the MCG Adelaide Oval and SCG, like the middle tier
Hmm.
is really good because you can see the whole play no matter where you are on the field. Probably there because um, sometimes when you're on the lowest level, it's really hard to see the footy when it's down the other end.
Hmm.
Then when you're at the top, it's quite high.
All
So
right.
I like the
Would you go wing, behind the goals, midfield? Any preference there?
probably like the midfield wing area. It's a good view.
All righty, all righty. And last but not least, last question, and this is my favorite because this has got a ton of different answers. What's your favorite game of footy that you have ever seen? Women's, men's, doesn't matter. Favorite game of footy you've ever seen?
Uh, Scene. Um, uh, I reckon it was this year in the men's season. The Swans, was it the prelim final against Collingwood that got into the grand final?
That was a good one. That it
That
definitely
was
had heart palpitations for many Swans fans until that final siren, but that was a good one. Definitely a good one. Brianna, this has been fantastic. Thank you for taking the time out. Like I said, I'm enjoying the background, even the random people walking behind you. So it's perfect. It's perfectly fine. Absolutely love the chat. Again, as I said on our Instagram message, I really appreciate that you taking the time to do this. This is so much fun for me as a Swans Nuffy. I absolutely love the team. I support the club as much as I possibly can. Again, I'm 13,000 kilometers away, but I don't know if you can't really see it, but I've got Swans gear up wherever I can. I've got the Pride jersey
yeah,
behind me. I've
yeah,
got my foundation membership. I need to get it into a picture case for sure.
yeah.
One of those things I hold very, very close to my heart. So I thank you so much for hopping on, and I really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. I'm actually like so I'm actually so aware of how many American fans of the AFL there are. I've seen so many of them on YouTube. It's actually so amazing. Thank you guys for getting behind the league. That's the
Uh,
only way it grows.
Absolutely no problem. In fact, if you get a chance to go on YouTube, look up USAFL. There's actually a league here in the States, and
Yeah, no, I do.
I actually coach a team here
Yeah,
in the small state of Iowa. They're called the Des Moines Roosters. And
okay.
I actually coach our team here. In fact, I'll send you on Instagram one of our games from our national tournament. In fact, Danny
Yeah.
Marshall, who plays for Essendon, was discovered in a USAFL game.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's
So,
crazy.
yep. In fact, our national tournament that we had this year was the week of your game against Essendon. And
Oh,
I told this they had a viewing party of your game against Essendon because both Danny Marshall and then Jess Wushner played in Boston. So
yeah, yeah.
there was a few, yeah. Unfortunately, most of them were cheering for Essendon because of the USAFL connection.
Yeah,
So I didn't want to stay and cheer for the opposite team. So
yeah.
I ended up watching it in my hotel room, and that was again a fantastic game. But that was if you get a chance, watch that. There's national tournament games. There's all sorts of USAFL games on there, and
Yeah,
So it's absolutely a blast. So we've got like, is it 2,500 players in 50 different clubs throughout the country.
that's crazy. That's amazing, actually. Like, yeah, it's very overwhelming to see how quickly it's growing.
Yeah, yep. And we're hoping to grow it even more. Alrighty. So I'm gonna end the podcast right here. Thank you, Brianna, so much. That has been another AFLW chat. Keep an eye out, ladies and gentlemen. Our preliminary and grand final preview episode will be out very, very soon. We'll do a grand final episode. And then unfortunately the off season. But we've got the AFL and AFLW going into off season at the same time. Keep an eye out, and we will see you again very soon.